You heard from our buddy Tommy Tran at the update say that Ezekiel Elliot is going out of the country instead of reporting to the Cowboys. At least that's what the expectation is right now from the Elliot camp, according to Pro Football Talk. So we know that he says he wants a new contract. It's not the same situation as Melvin Gordon because of the years of service. Gordon 4 years in, Elliot 3 years in. If Elliot does not show up by August 6th, he is going to lose a year of eligibility, which means his free agency gets pushed back a year. So the thought is that he's going to show up and not risk that. But still, we have to now factor this in. So I know in some capacity he's a top 3 to 4 overall pick for all of us. Have you guys thought about moving him down at all yet? He's still number 1 for me in non-PPR, number 2 in PPR. I'm keeping him in that spot right now.
I am too. A big question here. Does he have his passport? Does it not expire? Does he have a toothbrush pack? Does he have a good translator? No, that's not important. Let's see what happens. This isn't like the Melvin Gordon situation yet, but when the Cowboys open camp and if he's not there, then speculation will run rampant. You look at the depth chart behind him, they've got Darius Jackson, who has 6 carries in his NFL career. Tony Pollard, Mike Weber, those are rookies. Jordan Chunn, he only has 14 preseason carries. This is a mess. And if Ezekiel Elliott isn't there, it's going to be a huge problem for the Cowboys. And I don't know if their run game will have somebody who's even half as good as Ezekiel Elliott taking his place.
It's so much worse for Elliott to sit out this year than it would be for Gordon, and definitely than it was for Bell. And I don't worry as much about Jerry Jones not paying Ezekiel Elliott as I do the Chargers not paying Melvin Gordon. So I think they're going to work this out. I'm not going to move Elliott in my rankings unless we get to August 6th, and then we're going to all panic.
And the one thing about it is, again, you know, some of you are drafting now. We always encourage, if you can, draft in person with your buddies. It's a lot of fun, family, friends, however you want to do it. But most drafts are going to happen toward the end of August, so we should have a better idea. I will say this, though. Pollard is the guy that interests me the most because I do think that he's going to factor in the passing game now, even with Elliott on the field. And even if Elliott doesn't miss time, Pollard, to me, is the one that would benefit the most. So that's a guy you want to maybe take a late-round flyer on if, in fact, you are drafting anytime soon. If you've been following us all offseason, you know there's a player we've talked about quite a bit. His name, you've heard of, Todd Gurley. We know the knee situation last year was a problem at the end of the regular season. He limped through the playoffs and the Super Bowl, wasn't the same guy. And we don't know exactly what's going to happen. Is he going to get his full allotment of touches? Is he going to miss any time? Sean McVay, though, however, he says that Gurley is good to go. And so if we see Todd Gurley at any point in the preseason, that would be encouraging. The thought is he's going to miss most of the preseason games. Why would they risk putting him out there with this knee problem? As you see here, we sort of are in the same range. I'm the high guy on Todd Gurley. Dave is the low guy. Heath right in the middle. So Todd Gurley, the latest, ready to go from Sean McVay. Does that make you any bit more encouraging?
Did he say ready to go for 22.5 touches per game? Because that's what he had last year. He was outstanding with it, and I think that number is going to come down. And you just can tell by the Rams' actions this offseason, bringing back Malcolm Brown, drafting Darrell Henderson. They've got a plan in place to lower that number for Todd Gurley. Will he still be great for fantasy on 15 or 16 touches per game? Some games yes, some games no. And we don't know if he's going to be able to make it through 16 games because of the arthritis, or I should say, arthritic condition in the knee. Can't say arthritis. It's got to be an arthritic condition. I'm nervous to draft Todd Gurley with a second-round pick.
I'm nervous, too, but it was weird because after we heard the reports about Sony Michel having the procedure on his knee, and then we heard a lot of optimism from a lot of people, and, oh, he's fine, he's going full speed, and then camp starts and Sony Michel's on the pup. So I will be interested to see at the end of this week when the Rams open camp, is Todd Gurley a full go? Is Todd Gurley a partial go? Is he on the pup? That will be part of it, and then does he do anything at all in the preseason? I don't think he probably will. That's going to make it very difficult to spend a pick in the first 2 rounds on him.
You're drafting name, you're drafting expectation of what he hopefully is if he's healthy. I mean, look, a lot of people are going to end up with potential steal. You know, if you get him past round 2, it's even strange to be saying round 2, but if you get him past round 2 and he is 17 touches, 18 touches, you know, it could be the right time of year when they're using him. It could be they're saving him for November and December because that was what it was a problem. It's also not a bad idea, just given what the Rams' offense is. Second-round pick on Todd Gurley, 6th through 8th round on Darrell Henderson. I know you have a little bit reservation if it's going to be Henderson as the backup guy, but if he is the backup guy, and what the upside could be with him if, in fact, Gurley does go down. So you are getting a very good backfield with what Sean McVay tends to do with his running backs. You alluded to Sony Michel being on the PUP list. It's something we've been keeping an eye on all offseason. Had the procedure earlier this offseason, missed a lot of time in minicamp, or missed all of minicamp, excuse me. So another team that invested in running backs this offseason, they drafted Damian Harris. So with Michel on the PUP list, I'm very nervous about him just given what the knee situation is and has been going back to his time at Georgia. Are you avoiding Sony Michel in that round 4 or 5 range and non-PPR, 5, 6 PPR?
Yeah, I'm avoiding with that cost. I think he should go just a little later. I'm okay at the end of the 6th round in PPR. I don't know that this particular procedure and still being on the PUP a month later is that big of a concern. The concern is it seems like every 6 months he has another procedure on his knee. He's just got a long history now of these kind of problems. They've got Damian Harris, who got a lot of snaps with the first team at OTAs. We didn't expect that. I am very concerned, and we'll get even more worried if we're 2 weeks from now and he's still on the PUP.
So I spoke to an NFL general manager last week, and he said to me that, or former general manager, excuse me, he said that the Patriots running back depth is the best of any position in the NFL. And when you take a look at it, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
Michel, first-round pick, Harris, what he was expected to do coming out of Alabama as the lead guy ahead of Josh Jacobs. You have Rex Burkhead, who's had production in the league, and obviously James White. So they can afford to take their time with Sony Michel. But for Sony Michel's fantasy purposes, even if he's healthy, is he going to lose because of Harris being there?
Harris and Michel can do almost the exact same thing. In fact, you can almost say that Harris is a better pass catcher than Sony Michel. Just not quite as explosive,
Michel,
not
7
as quite
catches
a
last
game
year,
breaker.
yep.
So the thing that we've been talking about is just that short yardage work. Sony Michel had about a 50% success rate on that. Harris in college last year, almost 2/3 success rate on that. So that's something he can come in.
Harris had a better offensive line.
He did. There's no doubt about that. And it's college versus the pros, so not exactly apples to apples here. But you talk about pairing running backs like you did with Gurley and Henderson. I don't know if I can pair these guys. Sony Michel and Damian Harris, getting them both on my team when James White is there, who's going to take a big workload away anyway. So I'm nervous about this whole thing.
Well, there will be a Rex
I don't know if he makes the final
hold
roster.
on. They brought back Brandon Bolden. There will be a Brandon Bolden
Awesome
game.
for their special
Yep.
teams. I just want to avoid Sony Michel and go after Damian Harris. That's the guy I'm looking to get.
Yep, it's not a bad play, especially, again, if this knee injury lingers, but you'll see our rankings reflect that as Michel will probably continue to fall. Another backfield that's always fun to deal with, it's the Eagles. So Doug Peterson and the Eagles, they bring back Darren Sproles. Not a surprise. This was something that was kind of expected, but they draft Miles Sanders. They trade for Jordan Howard. They still have Corey Clement. They still have Wendell Smallwood. They still have Brian Westbrook. They still have Ricky Waters. Every Eagles running back in the history of Philadelphia is probably still on the roster based on what it feels like for these guys. I think Deuce Staley may get back on the field and take some touches as well.
He's coaching them.
He's coaching them, that's true. So Sproles now being factored into the mix. Forgot about Josh Adams, who was good for them last year also. So Sanders is the one that everybody is looking at because he's the rookie. Backed up Saquon Barkley at Penn State, then getting the opportunity to replace Barkley last year. Howard was very good for the Bears for the majority of his tenure there. Break down the Eagles running backs.
Well, here's what you need to know. In Doug Peterson's 3 years as a head coach in Philadelphia, none of his running backs have had 1,000 total yards. One of them had 7 or more touchdowns. And very few 100-yard total games, 7 in 3 seasons. They like to mix and match their guys. Sproles comes in over the last 2 seasons. He's averaged 7.3 touches per game. About 5 carries, 2.5 catches. It's not a lot to threaten Sanders and Howard, but you know from week to week that one of these backs will get maybe 12 touches. Another one might get 8, and another one might get 7. It's a mess, and I think fantasy owners just need to stay away from the Eagles' backfield.
I hate it. They've broken my projection sheet. I don't have enough running back slots for teams. They've got too many running backs. No, I think another problem for the Eagles and the way they do it, and it's something the Patriots do as well, is they'll go no huddle, and then they don't bring in the goal line back to score the touchdown. They just go no huddle and give it to the little guy at the 1-yard line. I don't know who you can count on in this amongst these running backs at all.
I think going no huddle with Jordan Howard may be a little bit
Right,
of a
it won't
mistake.
be him.
But
He
of
won't get
course,
touchdowns.
of course, he's the one that's being talked about as the great pass catcher.
Right.
They bring in the pass catcher. I still think Miles Sanders has the highest ceiling. So
yeah.
Go out and draft him. You heard the talk after the draft. We've been looking for a 3-down back. I think he still projects as that if, in fact, he can prove that he's healthy, has his hamstring problem, prove that he can keep the other guys off the field. Sproles is a safety valve for them. He's reliable. Howard, I think, can get them some early season production, but I still would take Sanders round 7 now. It was a round 6 pick for me. I'll take him 1 round later, but I don't think he's still going to be there. And if you are still doing your rookie-only dynasty drafts, he is a first-round pick still because of what the upside could be for him, but he's not a top 5 overall pick the way that he was following the NFL draft.